All right, guys. So today we are going to talk about bourbon. Yeah, we're going to talk about bourbon. We're going to get into all different things bourbon. We're going to be drinking some bourbon. What's going on? What is the world coming to? All right, guys. Here we are. It is raining cats and dogs outside right now. Yeah, it is. So I hope it's not interfering with our broadcast. So I'm going to be 100 with y'all. Um, I know I'm starting out already on the thing, right? Yeah. So we went out of town this weekend. We went over to West Texas, right? To go hang out with some family. It was a great time. We had a good time. Picked up some bottles. We'll talk about that in a minute. But that wind over there, it got to me. Yeah, it got to me. So now I'm a little congested. Not too bad. But anyway, first thing I want to do is it's dying down a little bit. I can actually hear myself think right now. I want to give a shout out, and he does not know I'm shouting him out. He is not a member. He is not a sponsor, unless he wants to be. He is not even a patron. I want to give a shout out to Doc Martinez. Yeah, Doc Martinez over at Old Fashioned Ways Plus Plus. He just gave me a sample. Not just a sample. Those of you all who are playing along on the Patreon and watching the video of this, not that one, not this one, and not this one, but I have 4 separate samples, and all of these are Wild Turkey products. Yeah, they are. They are the Wild Turkey 8-year, the Wild Turkey 13-year father and son, the Wild Turkey Heritage, Wild Turkey 12. Japanese release only. Anyway, and then he also sent over a half sample of Gold Spot and a sample of Bee's Knees 3 from Short Barrel, which I'm all about that. So why am I telling you guys this? Well, today we're going to talk about bourbon, right? We're talking about bourbon. Wild Turkey is one of my favorite brands. One of my favorite brands in all of Brandom. Is that a thing? Brandom? So, I just did a video on this bottle. It's the Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit Single Barrel. So this is a 101 proof Wild Turkey product that is a single barrel pick from Total Wine. I am going to pour a sample of this. I know it's a Tuesday. Leave me alone. I'm hoping it'll help me with my congestion. With the little bit of sample I did for the review, I enjoyed it. I just wanted it to open up a little bit more. It didn't. The nose on it, and that could be because of my nose, the nose on it didn't really slap, as the youngins are saying. So, now, let me get back to my story, and then we're going to get into bourbon. And today we are going to talk about, basically, we're going to break down bourbon. You know, we did multiple episodes on Scotch, right? We did multiple episodes, 4 or 5. I got to give due diligence to my American counterparts out there that love bourbon. Now, this is not going to be brand specific, right? This is just going to be bourbon in general. There are some brand specific things that are going on, and when we get further and further into it, they won't be every episode is not going to be about it, but it might be this one, and the next one will be about bourbon. Then we'll skip one. You know how it goes. So this one we're going to talk about the basics of bourbon, right? So that's kind of a thing. So first, I want to give you a little bit of a tasting note on this Kentucky Spirit, and who knows where it goes from there? We might be chilling. I don't know. So the nose is super caramel, vanilla, a little sharp, has a little sharpness to it. Luckily, the rain has died down. I can actually hear myself again. It's coming in waves. It's been raining all day, dude. It's crazy. We are in the middle of July. It should be. I'm not complaining. It's not 100 degrees outside. I was actually able to turn the AC down a little bit. Yeah. Normally, I have to keep it at a certain level. It just runs all the time anyway. It's 100 degrees in here, but right now it's not horrible. So on the nose, it's your typical bourbon notes, right? But it is amped up a little bit. It like it's like a cherry cola, right? Yeah, it's like cherry cola with a little bit of caramel or vanilla cherry Coke. That sounds pretty good. On the taste, though, I did it. I'm sorry. On the taste, it's oaky. It's very oak forward. There's a little bit of rye spice coming through. It hits on the very back of my tongue right before it goes down. It hits there and lingers, and then it lingers with like a tobacco, maybe a leather, a little bit of wood burning kit. You ever had a wood burning kit? Yeah, a little bit of that. Not smoky, but like the smell of the wood after you've burned it. It's not smoky. It's just like charred wood, right? But like the wood you would char within wood burning kit was like balsa wood or something like that. So like it's kind of a weird wood smell. This isn't a weird wood smell. This is like, your uh wood burning in like a piece of oak. It's not bad. Okay, but the finish on it lingers for a long time, and it's that oakiness. It has some herbalness from the rye. What else is in there? And then that it's almost like a creme brulee, maybe a little bit of creme brulee, like a burnt sugar. It's really nice. Okay, so when I scored it, I told you all about my scoring system now? I'm doing a new scoring system. So my scoring system was I am doing 10 up to 10 points. So you get 40 points, right? 1 through 10 on nose, taste, finish, and would I buy again? Now, would I buy again is kind of like a gimme. I don't know why. There's like a hair like in my nose. Anyway, it's like that one's kind of a gimme because like some of these bottles I probably wouldn't buy again. This Kentucky Spirit I would buy again. I ranked it, I think it was 28 out of 40. It doesn't sound great, right? But it really was good. It really was good. It's not for everybody. It's pretty basic in its profile, which I'm a little off put by because it was like $75 for a single barrel of Wild Turkey. I am going to side by side it with a single barrel of Russell's, which is Wild Turkey still, but I'm going to side by side it with that because I think it'll play well. I really do. Anyway, I'm going to have one more drink and we're going to get into it. Get into my story, that is. So my voice is a little off. Obviously, it's a lot deeper, ain't it? It's funny, too, because it's all I do now. It's been a couple days, right? I do like, I just hum. Do all this weird humming because it's like, I don't know, it sounds different. All right, so we went. Let's talk about the bottles. We hung out with cousins. It was a fun time. Went to the pool a little bit. I'm gonna get into that. So one of the not the reasons there was a wedding shower or something that my wife needed to go to. There was a cousin. It was a good excuse since I hadn't seen these people since right before Thanksgiving. Yeah, right before Thanksgiving was the last time I saw them because I was I was at the house the whole time. So we were like, hey, let's go up there and see them. It'll be fun. And it was. So, okay, let's talk about the drink first, and then we'll talk about the other drink. So we stayed at this other hotel, Marriott, something, I don't know. It doesn't matter. My wife or the cousin picked it out. Doesn't matter. So we go and they had like a Starbucks in it. Cool. At least I can grab a coffee in the morning. But they also had like a bar, and they said, "Hey, we have a open bar right now." Cool. I didn't have anything that night. Okay. So or did I? Anyway, where were we? Yeah, no, we had just got there. So we left. We went and did family stuff. We came back. Kids were chomping to get in the pool, but guess what? It was raining. So we were like, what are we going to do? So we go to this fun place, right? It's one of those has bowling and skee ball and all the things, right? So we go there for a couple hours. But yeah, all those places are the same, dude. You spend like $8,000 and you eat crappy pizza that sucks. I mean, this pizza was actually halfway decent, but whatever. And then so they were done. They spent all their money that we gave them, and then it finally stopped raining. So we went back to the hotel, and the kids decided they wanted to go in the pool, do some night swimming. That's always fun, swimming at night. Normally, I like to do that when anyway, it's fine. But so we go down, and me and the cousin were like, hey, the bar's open. And so we went and got a drink. So here's the story inside a story. So we go up there to get a drink, and I was outside, and the cousin goes, "Hey, this guy says he makes a really great old fashioned." I'm like, I'm known to like an old fashioned myself. Let's go check it out. So we go check it out. Well, he makes a sweet smoked habanero old fashioned. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued, of course. So I said, yes, please give me that. But I asked him, I said, is it hot? How hot is it? He goes, oh, it's not bad. I make candy, right? I make habanero candy, and then I smoke it on the grill. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, let's try that. And then he makes it into a simple syrup and uses it as a simple syrup. I'm like, that's super cool. Well, then he proceeds to tell us this story that they are like one of the top 6 bistros in the U.S. This little freaking podunk Marriott in the middle of nowhere is one of the top 6 bistros in the U.S. And his cocktail is one of them. And so I'm like, I'm sitting next to freaking royalty here, So I'm going to tell you this, and this is truthful from my heart. I don't do spicy. I get like hot salsa. It's like it turns me off. And then it hurts later, if you know what I mean. So we got it, and I was a little apprehensive. He made the old fashioned with Maker's Mark. And I was like, okay, that's different. I've never had an old fashioned with Maker's. Normally I'm doing a rye or a high rye bourbon, right? Not a wheated bourbon, right? It was actually really good. It played well with the habanero syrup. But I will tell you this, I could only drink one of those old fashions. Now, if we ever went back to that same hotel, I would have another. Absolutely. By the end of it, it was spicy. Like it was pretty spicy. Now, my cousin, he's like, no, it's good. It has some spice, but it's not spicy. And I'm like, well, I'm a bitch. Okay, I'm sorry. What do you want me to do? So that was really cool to like be able to have a drink from somebody who's like nationally recognized. That's pretty cool to me. Might not be to y'all, but to me that was like super, super awesome. Sorry, I'm talking. It's a thing. You guys had to deal with this when I was actually sick too, so it's just one of those things. So I have the inside baseball, and I don't care. It's my podcast, so I have the mic, the boom of the mic in a different area, and it's like weird. It's good, but it's like weird, So while we were at the family thing, right? The other cousin, the other cousin works at a liquor store. Pause for drink. the other cousin works at a liquor store, and a rep from Iron Root Republic came in and had a bunch of their SKU ready to sell. And I don't know how y'all feel about Iron Root, but I absolutely love them. I do. I love Iron Root. So, and they are bourbon. Yay. Their profile is so different from a lot of other profiles, but that's because they're well, I can't say it. I keep wanting to say balayage, but that's like a hair thing. My wife's a hairdresser, so she talks about that. Anyway, they have a specific way that they do barreling and stuff like that. But he said, "Oh, what are you looking for?" And I said, "Anything. I can't even get the Harbinger around here. I was able to pick up one Harbinger one time at a Total Wine somewhere, right?" So he goes, "Well, I got a cigar blend. Yes, please take it right now. I'll Venmo you right now. Let's go." Because I've heard, and I'm going to crack into it very soon, that the cigar blend is excellent. We'll see. I know it's going to be. And he goes, "Well, we also have the regular." I'm like, "I already have that. I'm good." And he said, "Well, we have the Promethean," which, if I'm not mistaken, and in the comments, please let me know, I think is their higher rye content. So that's going to be, I did have a bottle. I'm looking at it right now. It's up on the shelf of doom, and it was like 18 months old. I was going to pull it down, but it's a little high for me to grab right now. It was 18 months old in the old horseshoe style bottle that they used to have. Yeah, it's been a while. I think it was like 2018, something like that. Anyway, so I said, "Yes, I would love to have a Promethean." And he goes, "Hey, we also have boom, 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 their brandy." And I'm like, "Okay, pause right there, right? I don't know Brandy. I don't know. I heard she's a fine girl. What's such a good wife she would be, right? But I am intrigued by Brandy. But I don't want to make. I don't want to be the Brandy shaman, right? I don't want to be that. I'm intrigued by it though. But when my local, quote unquote, local distilleries are doing a brandy, I want to showcase that. So, in the not near future, but in the future, hopefully before the end of the year, I'm going to do a brandy episode, and I'm going to sample all of the brandies that I have accumulated over the years. I have an Andalusia, obviously. I have a Spiritual French Slick. I just, that was back when Alan was. I love Justin Whaley too, right? Justin, he's an amazing person doing amazing things. I'm still going to support spirits. So just, I have, what is the other one? Oh my God, Santa Fe Spirits. And now I have the Iron Root. So I have enough to do side by side. I'm thinking about doing them blind. 2 of them are apple brandy. 2 of them are grape brandy. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to make a difference, but we'll see. So why am I talking about all this? I'm talking about this because I want you guys to get out there and explore and understand whiskey and understand the other spirits that are around it. I'm not saying you need to fill your liquor cabinet with tequila, right? Tequila, similar to vodka, right? It sucks. No. If you want to, do it, right? Some people love tequila. They love the profile of it. They love sitting down with it, and then they go into mezcal and stuff like that. That's not me. I don't have room for the whiskey that I have. Okay. Just being serious. There's no way I'm going to be able to get through all the whiskeys. Mm-hmm. So I have to stay in my lane. I have a lane here, and I have to stay in it. All right. All that being said, we are freaking 20 minutes in now. Wow, that was a long one. I'm sorry, guys. Let me get this, and we'll get to work. Mm-hmm. 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 What makes bourbon bourbon? Right? This is going to be called Bourbon Breakdown. Even though I think there's a YouTube channel, possibly a podcast, possibly something else. I don't know what else to call it. Bourbon download, bourbon breakfast. I don't know. Whatever. Okay. So bourbon has to. I have chingos. I got chingos and nuts here. And this is not just for today. Bourbon has to meet certain guidelines, right? We all know this, but we're going to go over them because I feel like they're necessary in what we're trying to do here, right? Bourbon is America's spirit, right? It's an American spirit, but it didn't start out in America. So, as you guys well know, America is founded other than the indigenous people that live here, right? America is founded by people that are not from the area. Timelines are askew, dates are wrong, history askew, right? Columbus, whatever, it's fine. So when we started settling over here, they were making whiskey, quote unquote whiskey, where they were at. France, England, Scotland, Ireland, all the places, right? Everybody made whiskey, but they made it a certain way, right? Mainly barley. Well, then they come over here and the indigenous people, and I'm trying to be culturally appropriating, no, non-culturally appropriating, the indigenous people that were here took a liking to corn, and corn was growing rapidly. It was a different type of corn, though. That'll be on the Patreon on the next exclusive. So if y'all want to know more about the differences in corn from back then to right now, we'll get into that. So they had started growing corn, and it was really prolific in the areas in all of the US, right? Barley can grow, but it was mainly a corn crop and some wheat and other things. So they were like, oh, well, that's different. We're in a new world. We need to make a new whiskey, right? So they decided, and I'm paraphrasing, of course, like I'm not saying that they all sat down and thought about this. I'm just saying that they said, okay, there's a lot of corn here. We have to grow a barley crop. Let's just use the corn that's already here, right? So they did, and they made a product, and they were like, wow, that's different than what we're used to, right? So let's just start making this, and we'll call it something. Here's where, oh man, I don't want to get crucified for my words, right? I'm not saying that I care, but there's a group of people out there that feel that bourbon, the nomenclature of bourbon, was made in Bourbon County, Kentucky, and only Bourbon County, Kentucky. Kind of like with cognac, and kind of like with champagne, and all of these things. Like I said at the beginning, bourbon in itself is America's spirit. I don't care if you're in Hawaii, Alaska, Guam. I don't know if Guam fits. If you know in the comments, let me know. It's America's spirit, not just Bourbon County, Kentucky's. Now here's the deal. Kentucky makes amazing whiskey, and they have a pretty good heritage. Texas, not so much, right? And now we're getting into like the 20-year range of Texas bourbon, 18, 20 years, right? Now we're getting into that to where we're actually perfecting our craft over here. We're going to get into Texas bourbon on a later episode, but bourbon's been made all over the U.S. Holiday Distilling makes some of the best bourbon in the world. So, and they're in Missouri. Yeah, it's right above Kentucky, but it is different. It is different. So, they decided to put some guidelines down for bourbon specifically. And there's a couple of them that I'm like, you got to think when this was. This was late 1800s, early 1900s. They put some of these things down. That, we talk about the mash bill of a whiskey. We talk about that multiple times, and the mash bill is basically just the ingredients, a recipe, right? So have it. The mash bill of a bourbon has to be at least 51%, over 50%, 51% corn based, is a corn based spirit. Okay, that's really the only other thing that it has to be. 51% of it has to be corn. It can be 51%, 52%, 100%. Now then you get into corn whiskey, but still up to 80%, right? 80%. And then corn whiskey has a different caveat, but we're not talking about corn whiskey. We'll do an episode on corn whiskey maybe. There's not a whole lot to say, but so it has to be at least 51% corn. And then the rest can be a mix of rye, barley, wheat, oats. It doesn't matter. Rice. Doesn't matter. Do whatever you want with the rest of it, as long as it's 51% corn. But okay. It has to be distilled at no higher than 160, right? 180 proof. And it cannot go in the barrel any more than 125 or 62.5% alcohol, right? And it has to be in new American white oak barrels as of 2023. American white oak barrels, not oak barrels, not French oak barrels, not Spanish oak barrels. Do you see where I'm getting? To be considered bourbon. Now, the delineation of how long it needs to be in there, it doesn't say. Pabst Blue Ribbon made a whiskey. They put it in a barrel for 5 seconds, dumped it out of the barrel, and it is now bourbon. Is that right? I mean, legally, yes. But is it right? No, it's new make who got vatted in a new barrel for 5 seconds. It got no flavor, got no nothing. It's just new make. Is it good? No, it's not. I don't know. I'm sure it's not. I'm sure it's very grainy. So, yeah, it gets into some things. So, what is all this finishing, right? Is it still considered bourbon, or has it changed into a distilled spirit specialty, or a what they want to call it is a finished whiskey, a finished bourbon, which I agree. That's what it should be called. I feel like there should be a line off the side of bourbon saying finished bourbon, which meant it spent time in a brand new barrel and then they finished it. Right? So it is legally bourbon. And then it goes on to the caveat of this 2 years in that same original barrel. 2 years, it becomes what they call straight. Anything other than that is crooked. I don't know. But let's talk a little bit about how you make the whiskey, right? How do you make it? Well, first of all, you have to mill the grains, right? The grains are ground into a coarse flour known as grist. I am reading to expose it to the starches. The grist is mixed with hot water in a mash tun to convert the starches into fermentable sugars. Okay, so with corn, unless you have malted corn, which is very uncommon, I think there's a couple of distilleries doing it. Most of them, it's number one food grade yellow tint. Right? So it's not malted at all. Okay. So they have to boil the corn like you would boil corn on the cob, right? To soften it up. That's what they have to do. But they boil a flour, basically. It's a coarse flour. Not cracked corn, right? If you ever got cracked corn, no, it's not that. It's way finer than that. And they boil it. And what that does is gelatinize the corn and takes the starch from inside the kernel to outside the kernel, making them basically a porridge. Cornbread. Basically, they have the precursor to unbaked cornbread, right? Without using any butter or anything like that. Well, then enzymes from the malted barley break down the starches into sugar, which is known as saccharification. Yeah, it's a big word, $12 word. So basically, what you do is you boil the corn, boil it for 30 minutes, an hour, whatever. You can hold it at 190. There's all these different ways that people do it, right? It's fine. You don't need to know. Every place is a little bit different, okay? And I don't know the exact ways everybody does it. A lot of times they will have one tank. Some people have two tanks where they will boil their corn separately, and then they will slowly introduce that corn into the rest of their ingredients after it's cooled down. Or they'll add water to it to cool it down and move it over to the other one. Because this gets nerdy. And I'm sure I've already talked about this. And that's the thing. I'm going to stop right there for a second. That's the thing with doing podcasts like I've done. This is 74. Okay. I'm going to reiterate things a couple of times because there's whiskey is whiskey, right? But it's also like there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. And if I don't tell you more and tell you more again, then, it's one of those things. Anyway, so if I've already said this, I'm rehashing it again. For those who weren't listening, I see you back there. Wake up. So they mix the corn with the barley and rye and whatever else, and they add water to get it to a certain temperature between, some people say 138 to 157 degrees Fahrenheit. I don't know what that is Celsius. I'm sorry. I'm a bad human. And then they let it sit for anywhere between 30 to 90 minutes to where the malt has a chance to convert all of those starches that were made into sugar. I know this is a crash course, and I'm sorry. Why use the malt? A lot of people use very little malt. They don't use a whole lot of malt at all. Why would they use any? Well, you have to have something to convert, because if not, you just have a big starchy mess, right? There is liquid enzymes, yes, and some people use them. A lot of people actually use them just to finish up the saccharification process. But barley is so easy to malt. Well, easier than corn to malt, and its diastatic power, another big word, is a lot higher than corn. Corn doesn't even have a high enough diastatic power to convert itself to sugar. It's like the big guy on Mad Max, Return to the Thunderdome. He had the little guy sitting on his head. Corn is the big guy. He's tears stuff up. You don't really know what he's doing. He's being controlled by the malt. A little bit of malt controlling the big guy. That was a stupid analogy, but you get what I'm trying to say. I actually use that analogy a lot more than you think I would. I don't know. It's strange. And then after that, they cool it down and then they ferment it. The mash is fermented. And then there's 2 or 3 different ways that they do fermentation. They do open top fermentation in wood vats, which to me is super cool. It's super cool because it gets outside influence yeast, because there's yeast everywhere, right? There's yeast all over everything. It gets that and it puts it in the tank, and it helps to create congeners and esters and all the things, right? So it turns into kind of like a house profile. And then there's some people that do what they call closed fermentation. And a closed fermentation is just that. It's enclosed in a stainless steel vat. And it's very much controlled. It has a lot of control to it. So normally it takes 3 to 5 days, depending upon your yeast, depending upon your specific gravity of the now beer. It just kind of depends. It's called distillers beer, and it's normally anywhere between 6 to 10% alcohol. And so then they run it through a distillation, and either a column still or a pot still. And the first distillation produces low wines at around 20 to 25%. You don't want to drink those. You don't want to drink those. And then you do a second distillation, unless you're in a continuous still or something like that. You do a second distillation, and then it brings the spirit up to about 80% alcohol, or 160. And that's when you can legally call it whiskey. And then the new make is aged in new charred American white oak barrels. 125 proof. And to be called straight, it has to be in there for a minimum of 2 years. The aging process is influenced by temperature fluctuations, barrel placement, and warehouse conditions. So, like on this Kentucky Spirit, I'm getting back into it. It says it was stored in warehouse CN-A. I don't know what that means. It's probably Camp Nelson A Rick House, right? Camp Nelson A Rick House. On Rick number 35. So that might be the third floor, fifth one over, and selected by the bourbon connoisseur. Who is that? Who's the bourbon connoisseur? Is that you? Maybe it is. All right. So the barrel interaction, the spirit interacts. Yeah. No, extracts. I'm sorry. I read that wrong. The spirit extracts color, flavor, and compounds from the wood, developing complexity over time. So the longer a whiskey is in a barrel, the more it gets out of it. But there is a spot of diminishing return. Does that make sense? There is a spot in there where you're like, okay, it's hit a plateau, and now it's going down, and it's degrading. Because what happens is, and we're going to get into this somewhere, the angels come in and they steal your whiskey. Yeah, they have to take their part. It is what it is. Evaporation, stuff like that. So what it does is it concentrates in America. Now in Scotland and Ireland and other places, it's actually reverse, but it concentrates those flavors. So if you have a heavy wood influence, it's only going to get concentrated more the longer you leave it in there. Think about that. So that's why a lot of the old whiskeys, not the Pappy 23 or anything like that, a lot of the old whiskeys are blended with newer stuff, because they're like, man, that is super oaky. We left that in way too long. It's like oak bomb. That's all it tastes like, oak. That's a thing, you know. That is a thing. So then they dump the barrels, and then once it meets a certain age, which every distillery, bourbon distillery, is different. Some wait for 6 years, some wait for 4 years, some wait for 10. It just depends upon their profile, right? What they're looking for, and they're also checking the barrels and doing samples and stuff like that. So take that for what it is. They are dumped, and they're filtered, but not like charcoal filtered, right? Is that what it says? No, they're just filtered through a mesh screen to get the chunks of wood out of it. Because think about it, when you char something like inside of a barrel, when they're charred, I know you've seen videos. I post them all the time on my Instagram. So where like they take the barrel and they put it over the fire, and it's like a blazing inferno coming out of the front of it, and they get a level 3 or level 4 alligator char on there. That stuff, after time, the wood and the wood breaks down, the alcohol breaks it down, and the wood chunks kind of lets fall off. And the charcoal is basically, when they char it, and we've talked about this before, when they char it, it's basically filter. You know, my wife has these charcoal pills that she takes when she's not feeling well. Tummy's a little upset. Take a charcoal pill, and it's a binder. It binds to those chemicals that your body isn't liking, and then it gets rid of them. It's same thing, same thing. Animals, and I know this from personal experience. I have donkeys. Um, Trying to get rid of the baby Jack that I have. He is a turd, and we've already got him sold. I'm just trying to get him out of the house. He's got to wean a little bit more. Anyway, long story. But we have a wood burning stove, not stove, but fireplace. And so during the winter, I have a big pot that I put all the ashes in, and then I go dump them outside. And everybody's like, why don't you just dump them in the trash? The animals, the donkeys, will roll in that ash to get the dust mites and all the crap that's on them, the chiggers, all the things that are on their body. It helps to get them off. It acts as a barrier for their body. Same with chickens, right? Chickens do the same thing. I'm a farmer, homie. You better recognize. No. So that's kind of what the charcoal does. It just acts as a filter to filter the whiskey, because sometimes, not all the time, most of the time, these distillers are doing it the right way. They're making the right product. They're putting good stuff in the barrel, right? But every once in a while, you get some like weird cut, right? And you got to think, when you're able to dump or fill 20, 30, 50 barrels a day, right? You have a cut point on both sides. You have a cut point at the beginning and a cut point at the end. Everything else goes in the barrel. Because guess what? You got 20,000 barrels out there, or more. More, I'm sure. 20,000 barrels out there that you can dip into. So if one's a little askew, use it for blending, right? It's not that big of a deal. Anyway, so then the master distiller may blend. Now, I have a problem with master distiller. We can talk about that on a later one. The blenders go through and they pick the barrels and they blend to the profile. So if you're making Jack Daniels today, it needs to taste like Jack Daniels yesterday, right? It can't be too far. There is what they call flavor drift, but when you're dumping, a small batch is 20 barrels. So 20 barrels, so 20 times 53, let's just say 50 to make it easy for math. I'm going to actually look it up on my phone real fast. I'm sorry. 20 times 50, that's 1,000 gallons. 1,000 gallons of whiskey. Okay. That's a small batch normally. So 1,000 gallons of whiskey can meet the profile. One is going to be overly tannic after 5 or 6 years. One is going to be really light and fruity. One is going to be like, hey, this one's special. That's a single barrel. Boom, put that one to the side, right? And then you're just going to kind of blend it all together. We talked with Emma. We've talked with Irene Tan. We've talked with all these people. Brandon, all of these people that do blending. That's what they do. They blend whiskeys together. And the end product has to be better than what you put in there. Does that make sense? So, and then there goes to proofing and dilution, right? The bourbon is usually diluted with water. So you have to think about the water you're using too, because water has to be pure, it has to be iron free, and many distilleries use limestone filtered water. Here's the deal. Not all. Most of the area in the United States is limestone filtered water. It's not just Kentucky, right? It's not just Tennessee. It's everywhere. Limestone is in the earth. You think about the different. It's right there at the water layer. Anyway, so they're usually diluted with water to a desired bottling proof, and so that's just kind of dependent upon the distillery. Like this one is 101. The Kentucky Spirit is 101. Wild Turkey loves a 101. But it must be minimum of 40% alcohol or 80 proof. Some bourbons are bottled at cask strength, which means no water was added. So that can vary. That can vary. It could be anywhere from 108, 102 to up to 140 plus, depending. I have a whiskey in there and it's 143. There's some that go into Canada that are over 150. Now, why would that be? Well, they have different laws. They can put it in at a higher proof, but because I guarantee you they're not getting the angel share we are. Anyway, so and then some whiskeys undergo what they call chill filtering, which basically means you chill the whiskey down to a degree right at freezing, because alcohol doesn't freeze at the same temperature, right? And it removes the proteins and fatty acids that can cause cloudiness. Wow. Okay. Packaging. The bourbon is bottled, labeled, and packaged. Labels must include specific information such as proof, age, if stated, and distillery. Most of them have to say, if it's straight, it has to say straight. So it's at least 2 years old. But if it's any significant age, like a 12-year or something, it's going to say it on the bottle. It might not, but most of them are going to be like just a 9-year-old Knob Creek or whatever. So it's really strange. So you got to think about the craftsmanship, right? These original bourbon makers, I'm talking about pre-prohibition, because prohibition in itself destroyed bourbon. There was very few bourbon distilleries that were able to make medicinal whiskey, right? And some of them got busted. We talked about that on the last episode, that some of them got busted for trying to make whiskey that wasn't medicinal. They were trying to just feed their families during the prohibition, right? And they got busted for it. So very few distilleries stayed alive. The big six obviously did, but Wild Turkey obviously did. Everybody took a hit. Not going to lie, everybody took a hit. But then after 1933, they had to rebuild. They just said, rebuild, revamp, let's go. Where did you get the money for one to do that? You're coming right off of a 10 years of not making whiskey, and now all of a sudden you've got a bunch of whiskey. I don't know. That's out of my realm of knowledge, I guess, but it's really cool to see how bourbon has turned into its own thing. Bourbon is not like Scotch. Bourbon is not like, and we haven't even talked about rye whiskey. Rye whiskey has some definite ties with bourbon. Let's talk about it real fast, but let me say this one thing though. So like bourbon, like I said in the beginning, bourbon is America's spirit, and everybody knows it, and everybody appreciates it as America's spirit. But now there's been an insurgence of late, and I don't know what late is. I've been in the game for a minute, right? And it's ever since I was in the game. So I'd say 20 years, maybe. An insurgence of craft bourbon. Bourbon's outside of Kentucky and Tennessee, right? I mean, there's bourbon all over the U.S. now. And it's amazing. It's some of them, not all, obviously. Some of them are, oh my God, amazing. So what does that say? What does that say for America? And I know, and this is not a political podcast, as you well know. We are not political. We do not go down those realms. We get spiritual sometimes. I'm not going to lie. We do get spiritual. I'm not called the shaman for no reason, right? We get spiritual. But due to all the events that have recently happened in the United States, right? Bourbon in itself is still America's spirit. It will never waver. It will never fall. It will never bend a knee, right? It will rise up and fight. And I'm going to tell you right now, and this is not me being super patriotic, I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. Yes, I'd love to visit all these other places, but yes, we are undermined in a lot of things we do, and our freedoms are taken away daily. We've talked about that, and it is what it is. But the fact that I can sit here and talk to you without somebody telling me, no, you can't, that is America. That is America. And bourbon is America. It's harsh sometimes. It's a little brash. It's a little overbearing, right? I think of Garrison. Now they're a Texas whiskey, so Texas bourbon, so hold on. I think of Garrison Brothers when I think of America, which is strange. You would think I would think of Jim Beam, right? You think I would think of Wild Turkey. You think I would think of Heaven Hill, right? They had a huge fire and rebuilt and turned into one of the biggest distilleries in the world producing. But no, I think of Garrison Brothers because they went like this, held up a middle finger to everyone else and said, we're going to do us, like it or not. And yeah, we're going to charge $90 a bottle for our whiskey. And you know what? I've had a lot of hate for them. I really have. And hate is a strong word. I've had a lot of dislike for them in the past. But I wasn't able to go this past weekend to the release of the Laguna Madre. I don't know what that one is. I think it's double oaked. I'm not certain. I wasn't able to go get that one, but there was a line almost 5 miles long to pick up that whiskey. Are you what? And they were charging $200 for it and sold all of those bottles. Now they will have some to put on retail. Depending upon its price, I might pick one up. That's America right there in itself. The fact that these people in High, Texas, you ever been to High? Ain't nothing there. Not even a stoplight. Not even a stoplight. There's a stop sign. William Chris Winery right across the street. They're on a ranch. They're making ranch whiskey. And it shows in a good way, not in a bad way. So that's America. And I know a lot of our favorite brands. And I'm going to wrap it up here in a minute because this is just the introduction, right? We're going to go in way deeper. I feel our favorite brands in bourbon, yeah, they kind of sold out. I don't want to say sold out because like these series of podcasts are supposed to promote bourbon, right? They're supposed to promote America's whiskey. What's in my glass right now? This Kentucky Spirit that I've been sipping on for a minute. That's America, dude. That is our product. And I didn't make this. I had nothing to do with this whiskey, right? But I do now. And that's what's weird about the whole whiskey community, right? I don't have anything to do with this exact bottle until I pour it in my glass and I take a sip of it and I talk to you about it. Now I am a part of Wild Turkey. I'm a part of this single barrel. This is a part of me, right? not to get woo woo on you, right? But when you imbibe, when you take whiskey, when you ingest whiskey, you're also taking in the brand. You're also taking in the heritage, the love, the hopefully it's love that went into this bottle. Hopefully it wasn't bottom line. Hopefully it wasn't another meeting with the boss. Hopefully it's let's make the best whiskey we can make. We make bourbon and we make it good. That's how everybody should feel, right? That's how it should always be. It should always be we try to make every bottle of bourbon the best bottle of bourbon we can make. Are they doing it? I don't know. I would love to sit down with Jimmy Russell. I mean, that'd be life goals, life goals. Jimmy, if you're listening, hit me up, whiskeyshamanpodcast@gmail.com, or shoot me your email. I'll email you. I don't care. But I say all that to say it gets sentimental. And that's why I tell people, don't sit there and just drink the same bottle. And I mean, if you find a bottle you like, you find a bottle you like. That's not what I'm saying. But like, don't just drink, and I'm going to throw Crown under the bus for a second. Don't just drink Crown because it's cheap and you can mix it with Coke and get drunk. You get what I'm saying? If you really want to nerd out, and if you're listening to this podcast, you want to nerd out, right? If you really want to do that, find a good bottle. And we're talking about bourbon, right? Find a good bottle of bourbon. Sit down with it. Enjoy it. Be with family. Be with friends. Be with people you love. Because, sorry, you don't know what's going to happen, bro. You don't. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know what's going to happen today. Some shit could pop off right now. You know what I mean? No. Man, y'all got me turned up. It's definitely about the bourbon, right? It's about the bourbon. It's about the hands that held it, but it's also about the experience. It's about the love. It's about all that stuff, man. A single barrel comes from one barrel. So somebody handpicked this barrel of whiskey and said, "This is good. Somebody needs to drink it." And I get the privilege to sit here and drink it. And a lot of people don't look at it like that. Like the fact that I got sent samples of Wild Turkey Heritage. This is a very expensive bottle. And I got a sample of it. Deep dive coming soon. And the fact that we're talking about Wild Turkey, and I got 4 Wild Turkey samples today, literally in the mail today. It was meant to be, brother. You know, if it's meant to be, it'll be. You know who I'm talking about. Anyway, I don't know, man. It's all about understanding what your place is. And this is going to get a little spiritual, and I don't care. It's trying to figure out where your place is in life, right? Where do you fit in all this? Where do you fit in not only the whiskey's a thing, it's obviously a thing, but where do you fit in that? Are you just a casual drinker? Hopefully you're not a heavy drinker because that turns into issues, obviously. But are you a influencer? I don't consider myself an influencer. If you do, whatever, I don't care. Are you a whiskey advocate? I feel like I'm more of a whiskey advocate. I love all whiskey. I enjoy all whiskey, and I want everybody to enjoy it with me. And I praise the bottle, the distilleries, and the whiskey people I have on this podcast. I support them wholeheartedly, even if I don't totally not believe. I don't want to say believe. Not even though I don't totally jive with their company. I've had some people on the podcast, and you go look for them, that we didn't really jive. You know, it is what it is. But I feel, and you can tell me what you want, I feel that you, all of us, the Patreon especially, we've been able to get some guests on that are paving the way for whiskey and bourbon. When I say whiskey, I mean like JT Mellick, right? I think Natterjack. I think Dad's Hat, right? Let's talk about rye real fast, right? Like I said 20 minutes ago. So when the settlers came over and they were bringing their practices of malt whiskey, and they realized, hey, there's not a whole lot of malt over here, and the ground is hard and it's not very hardy, and it rains kind of sometimes whenever. So they were like, corn grows, cool. They had also brought over some rye because Ireland had done a lot of rye whiskey. I don't think you even knew that, right? Yeah. So they brought a rye over. And so they were growing rye. And that's where the whole George Washington rye whiskey craze kind of hit. And when we talked to Herman over at Dad's Hat, he told us all about that, right? He told us all about how rye whiskey is Pennsylvania. It is Pennsylvania. It's more Pennsylvania than the freaking Liberty Bell. I stand on that. I stand on that. I also heard something today that kind of made me feel a way, not good nor bad, is basically the spirit is just there. By spirit, I mean whiskey, gin, whatever you're drinking. The spirit is there. It's what you do with said spirit that changes it into a angel or a demon. Now, there are a lot of people out there, and this might go a little off on some people, but there are a lot of people out there that think that alcohol in itself is a negative thing, that it invokes spirits. That's why they call it spirit, right? That it invokes these things and it brings out negative spiritual things. I am not a guru. I am not a spiritual leader, right? I'm your guide to the spirit world, not that spirit, right? Whiskey. I'm your guide to whiskey. But it kind of makes me think a thing. There has been, and we're going to get into that right now. Yeah, we are. There has been a temperance movement as of late. Yeah, a temperance movement, which is precursors to a prohibition. These people that are saying no lips that touch liquor will touch mine, right? These sorts of things are out there. There's two things with this. In one hand, I understand it. And this is coming from a whiskey lover and a whiskey enthusiast, a whiskey podcaster dude, right? Everywhere you look, we are watching for the first time, and don't hate me because it took me a while. I'm sorry. We are watching Peaky Blinders, right? Amazing show. If you haven't watched it, you need to watch it. Not kid approved. There's a lot of death and a lot of boobies. Just saying. Not a lot of boobies, but enough to where you're like, oh, I get it. Kid's right. Nope. Okay. He walked in, he walked out, he saw the boobie. I mean, you did your, yeah. Can't turn it off fast enough. Anyway, because you don't know when it's coming, right? You never know when the boobie's going to pop out. You really don't. Anyway, there is a ongoing temperance movement. And I see it. I do see it because everywhere you look in every facet of life, if you want to have a good time, you grab a cool Coors Light. You want to hang out with me, you better get some Fireball. You know, right? As he takes a sip of whiskey, whatever. Here's the thing. I agree. Not that I want there to be a temperance movement. I do not. Those old biddies need to go back to their house and let us grown men do the grown men things that we want to do, and grown women. I love all my female listeners. Don't get me wrong. I love all of you. Here's the thing. I am of legal drinking age. I should be able to drink as I feel. There is extremes on one side or the other. I get that. I understand all of the things. Do we need more regulation on whiskey and on spirits? No, I don't think we do. Do we need to shove it down everybody's throat every moment of the day? No, I don't think we do. I think there is a fine line between you want a whiskey and, hey, we just chugged 47 bottles of whiskey. Sorry. There's a difference, right? Like, okay, perfect example. This October, I might do a live from if I go. Yeah, anyway, long story. There's the Bastard's Ball, which is from the Whiskey Tribe. And you all know, if you know, it's a thing. There will be a bunch of distilleries there, and there will be a bunch of whiskey people there. It's a closed event. And some things happen at that thing. Not nasty. I'm not trying to say they're nasty. People take it overboard. Normally, it's pretty good, but people take it overboard. And so I took TABC training, right, to be a whiskey person in a bar. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I can actually legally I can legally serve whiskey in bars and restaurants and stuff like that. It's a stupid thing. Whatever. I've had a contract with a restaurant, and it's fine. It has now fizzled out, and the restaurant is closed, but whatever. It is as the bartender / whiskey enthusiast guy, it is your job to make sure they don't have enough whiskey. Have too much whiskey is what I meant to say. To where they don't have too much. Okay, I'm going to stop you right there. Here's the deal. if I pour you a whiskey, I don't know how many whiskey you've had outside of where you came from me, right? There's a lot of people that do what they call bar hopping. They go from one bar to the next, to the next, to the next, right? They do bar hopping. If you're like me, and I've in the past, I have been in places where I've had multiple drinks and I'm still fully composed, fully aware, fully sober minded, right? But I should not have another drink, right? How am I to know as a professional? How am I to know when to say, no, you don't need another drink? Why would you put that on the bartender slash whiskey sommelier slash whatever? Why would you put that on them and not put it on the individual person, the person who is imbibing in said drink? That has always been a strange thing to me, because here's the deal. I don't know where you are in your journey, but like, when you're like, cut myself off. And you have to be like, and I understand the party's going on. I get it. Party's going on, man. We're having shots, whatever. I don't know. What do you do? What do you do when you're at that point and you're the pourer? Because I've been in some tastings, and this is 100% truth. I need some water real fast. Hold on. I've been in some tastings, and I'm bringing good whiskey, right? I'm not bringing, black label stuff. I'm bringing the good stuff. And these people are like shooting the whiskey. And I have a whole spiel, right? I have the whole thing that I'm doing in the beginning where I'm like, you take it, and I bring the Glencairns, and I'm like, you nose it, and you do the thing, and then you sip the whiskey, and you act like it's hot coffee, and they go like this, and they chug it back. I didn't do it. They freaking chug it. And we're talking like in a bar, that'd be a $50 pour that you just chugged, right? Again, I ain't your dad. You're a grown-ass person. I ain't going to tell you how to drink your whiskey, right? But if you want to get the best experience out of it, this is how you need to do it. I feel like there's a growing, and this is me on a pedestal, and then I'm going to get out of here. I feel like there's a growing understanding on one side where people are like, we respect the whiskey, we respect all this, we have very small samples, we sip them, all the things, right? And then there's the other crew that comes, and I don't want to blame it on the colleges and the things like that, because I know people that ain't been to college that can drink me on their table. Absolutely. So it turns into a thing, right? It turns into like, are you babysitting or are you having a good time with these people? I don't know. It's hard. And I feel like bottom shelf bourbon, bringing it back to bourbon, I feel like the bottom shelf bourbons have a contributing hand in that, right? All the drinking songs, what do they talk about? Pour me up another shot of whiskey, right? Me and old Jack Daniels got a history, right? Ain't nobody talking about me and Kentucky Spirit. Me and Wild Turkey Kentucky Spirit cost me $85, got a history. No, nobody talks about it. Me and Pappy 23 got a hit. No, you don't have a history of Pappy 23. Okay? You ain't got a history with that. You got a history with the Jack Daniels or the Jim Beams, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, it goes back to whiskey and bourbon knowledge, and to help these people understand. And this is for you as well. This is for you at home. This is for me. This is for the Patreon to hear and see. If you're pouring a whiskey for somebody, you better understand that what you pour in that glass, it's not life-changing, obviously. but it is a how do you call it? It is a transaction between you and that person. Just like if you went to the store and bought a loaf of bread from somebody, right? That is a transaction between you. Therefore, you are not legally binded, but you are bound to that person for that transaction and its negative results. Is that right? Yeah. Karmically. I don't believe in karma, but spiritually, yeah, because you said, hey, take this. It's fine. You're not going to die. Promise. Did you die? No. That's the thing. So taking it back to bourbon, right? Why did I get a little choked up earlier? Because I appreciate bourbon being my spirit as an American citizen. And I don't take that lightly, right? I don't take being American lightly. I'm very patriotic. I care for my country. I care for all the things that are happening in our country right now. But there's only so much I can do. Right? I do my thing, and you meet me halfway, and it's fine. So the bourbon plays into life, and it doesn't have to be life, though. That's the thing. Once it becomes life, then you need to move on. So next time we're going to get into some specifics about the early beginnings of bourbon and the establishment and prohibition and the craft distilling movement. And then we're going to talk about different early pioneers and stuff like that. So stay tuned for what's coming soon, because I feel like it's only going to get better. And I'm sorry if I rambled and went on a little much, but there's a lot. There's a lot going on out there, and I guess it's on my mind. And I don't know. It just needs to come out. And there's a lot of very spiritually active things that are happening right now, both in my life and in my family's life, extended family's life. You know who you are. That is going on right now that physically affects me and mentally and spiritually affects me. And I have to say those things. I have to, because if I don't, then I have to sit on them and they become a rock in my way. And I feel like that's what you guys like. I feel like you like the realness of this podcast. Not many podcast hosts can sit down and tell you a story and cry. I'm not saying they don't, right? I'm not saying they don't, but yeah, who cries over bourbon, right? Whatever, it's fine. But at the same time, I want to thank real fast. Let me thank my guys. All my guys, my Patreons. Oh man, is it shout out? Is it Patreon shout out? Oh my god, I think it is. Oh shit. Okay, I got them off the dome. I can look at them real fast. Let me pause. They are the new Patreons are Nick Noster, Osterhot. Can't get it. Dylan Thompson, my brother. Yes, sir. Sarah Kelly. She's there. Jason Souder, my man. OG level 4 whiskey sommelier. Cassie, Miss Cupcake. Phil D Vibrations, Miss D. Love you. Zach. You know Zach. Freaking Bob Hansen. Yes, sir. And my buddy Scott. My buddy Scott Thompson. Love him. Jack White. Jack White, you're the man. Even though you're on that free feed loser stuff. I got to give him shit. And the one and only Psych Man. You know Psych Man. He's doing this shit. Yeah. Yeah, no, I totally forgot about that. I'm sorry. And I also wanted to give a shout out to Bad Motivator Barrels. There'll be a pinned link in the comments down below. Go pick you up a barrel. This Infinity barrel that's right here beside me. Oh my God, sherry scotch. Let's go. Right? Let's go. It's it's I don't know what else to say. It's freaking amazing. And Z Smith whiskey and mixology. Yeah. If you know, he does cocktail curations, cocktails of the week, short stories and history. I post all this shit. If you're following me, you're like, why are you posting all this stuff? It's all Zach's. It's all Zach's. Everything I post is Zach's. No, it's not. But he's my brother, and I'm gonna support him because he doesn't know how to support me, so I don't know how to support him. It's kind of like that weird thing we got going on. But I love you guys. Thank you very much. We ran a little long, and that's okay. I appreciate it. Y'all be good, be safe, drink water. It's freaking hot. I mean, not right now, but the sun just came out. But y'all be good, and until next time, keep your spirits up.